Dr. A.W.R. Hawkins joins us from the Daily Caller. How are you, Dr. Hawkins?
Doing great, Cam. How are you?
I am good. We're having some fun with the story of the movie The Butler, which apparently is going to feature Jane Fonda as Nancy Reagan and John Cusack as Richard Nixon. Aren't
Oh
you
yeah,
excited?
yeah. I can't wait to not see that.
I won't be standing in front of the theater waiting to see it at midnight. You have a new piece up at the Daily Caller, the Second Amendment, the linchpin of the Bill of Rights. And you say that the dictionary defines linchpin as a pin, quote, that serves to hold together parts or elements that exist or function as a unit. And so, in other words, you say our right to keep and bear arms is the right that holds everything else together.
That's exactly right, Cam. I mean, I use a little imagery in there. I grew up with my dad. He had an auto shop, and I used to help him do brake jobs and different things. And I remember well, at the end of the axle, there's a hub, and on that hub, there's a nut. And all of this complex machinery, all the parts of the wheel, the parts of the brake, the wheel itself, everything eventually is held on by one little linchpin that keeps a nut from backing off. And that imagery is what we need to seize on, because that one little amendment, the Second Amendment, is the one that keeps the whole of the Bill of Rights from crumbling. It gives integrity to all the other amendments, and that was the point I was trying to make today.
What kind of reaction have you received to your piece?
Well, I've received pretty good reaction, actually, a lot of email on it, and I'll receive far more email tomorrow or the next day, usually on a Daily Caller piece. I'm fortunate there that they'll keep that up all week, and so usually by the second or third day is when it'll hit critical mass as people pass it from one person to the other, and I'll get a lot of great feedback usually about the third day, but it's an important lesson for us all to know. I think most people know it. It's not like I've discovered something, but I think I've said something that maybe will resonate with people because they already knew it to be true.
Well, I think that you're right. I mean, you talk about the founding fathers and how important the right to keep and bear arms was to them. And again, going back and looking at our history, this wasn't a right that was created at the time of the founding of this nation. This was a right, any more than the First Amendment was a right that was created when the United States came into existence. These were long-standing rights that the colonists had possessed as free British subjects, and they did not want to lose those rights. This was a new government, and this was a check on the new government so that they would not be able to go and strip Americans of their old rights.
You're exactly right, Cam. And as you spoke, I can't help but think of the degree of genius that our founders possessed. Because if you look at our friends across the pond, so to speak, if you look at the British now, they have gun control run amok. They can't get their hands on a weapon. And here we are over 200 years after our founders wrote these documents, and we still have a constitutional protection for a God-given right to keep and bear arms. So the men were genius for what they did.
Well, I can't disagree with you. I think that they were genius, and you go and you read the arguments surrounding the Bill of Rights, and it's a fascinating story. I wish that every American would learn not just what's in the Constitution, not just what's in our Bill of Rights, but the story about how we got our Constitution, about how we got our Bill of Rights, because it is a fascinating exercise, not just in terms of the founders, but honestly in terms of the citizens of the new nation. The Constitution was ratified by popular vote. And I don't think it would have been ratified without the promise that a Bill of Rights was coming, because there were a lot of Americans who were concerned that without a Bill of Rights, the government would go unchecked. There was a competing philosophy, individuals that believed in individual liberty just as much, but they thought that a Bill of Rights would actually not constrain the federal government, but would empower the federal government to go after rights that weren't enumerated, which is why we ended up with the 9th and 10th Amendments. To read the story about how we got the Bill of Rights, Dr. Hawkins, I tell you what, it should inspire every American to be as engaged as possible, because that's how we ended up with these rights. It wasn't that it was just, James Madison calling for the Bill of Rights. It wasn't that, you just had the founding fathers having these arguments. There were arguments in taverns, there were arguments in churches, there were arguments in town halls, back and forth. American citizens debating what the governing documents of this nation were going to look like. And it's a great story about citizen activism that I think, frankly, should inspire all of us this year.
Oh, no, I agree with you, Cam. I agree with you 100%. And I think that is the beauty of the way that the Bill of Rights came to be, as you speak. You know, the action of the people, not a top-down action so much as a bottom-up action, because the ones who framed it were bottom-up. They were us. And I think that's why, again, I was drawn in that article that you discussed earlier of mine, Walt Williams. Walt Williams, to me, has always been a man of the people. And when I heard Walt Williams, I think it was about 10 years ago on Rush Limbaugh, and that's really what inspired me to write what I wrote today. Walt Williams was guest hosting one day, and somebody called, and they were discussing the Bill of Rights. And out of the entire discussion, the only thing Walt Williams really said was, whatever you do, don't give up your guns. And that was one citizen talking to another citizen saying, this is what I've learned. Whatever you do, don't give up your guns. And that man understood that the linchpin of the Bill of Rights was the Second Amendment.
Absolutely. Talking with Dr. A.W.R. Hawkins, writing the Daily Caller. Dr. Hawkins, thanks again for your time tonight, sir. Look forward to doing this again soon.
Thank you, Cam. I always enjoy it. God bless.
Me too. You too. Have a great evening, sir.